Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. Tonight is no different. I want to welcome all of our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5 and region number 6. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our listeners and viewers who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Robb Street, Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And last but not least, to thousands of you who are joining us across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond on Facebook Live. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Share the live, share this program so that all your friends and all your followers can join us in tonight's discussion. The wider the audience, the better the show. Ajodhya Anantu, Rajendra Singh, Carla Thomas, Robert Rampasad, Dwayne London, Bob Law Blaw, and Morel Madramutu, Devendra Sinarain, Joyce Lynn, and so many of you are already on. Welcome, and use the comment section to put your comment, raise questions, even criticize me if you wish, but sensibly. So let us start. I want to spend some time tonight in discussing some important judgments that have been handed down by our current acting Chancellor, the Honorable Justice Roxanne George. As you may know, Chancellor George was elevated to act in the position of Chancellor of the Judiciary after spending several years acting in the office of Chief Justice. And I suppose that she's clearing out the outstanding decisions that she had when she acted in the office of Chief Justice. And Monday, the 17th, that's yesterday, Chief Justice George handed down a series of decisions. And I want to share two of those decisions with you and explain them and discuss them because they are of importance. So, last week, Justice Gino Prasad ruled that the post-clearance audit system being administered by the Guyana Revenue Authority is unlawful, and that the Guyana Revenue Authority doesn't have the legal power to conduct a post-clearance audit. He further ruled that the post-clearance audit is not provided for in the laws of Guyana. And he granted a number of reliefs in that case that is now very popular in the public domain. Saturday, I offered a comment to Newsroom in which I respectfully disagreed with the judge. And I said that the judge fell into error, that the decision is wrong, that the post-clearance audit is a necessary power that the Guyana Revenue Authority, as every taxing authority, is a necessary power to go back and assess taxes. I said that if every importer is to be subjected to the scrutiny and the 100% examination, item by item, that a custom officer is required by law to conduct, then goods will will take an unduly long period of time to be cleared from the wharf or the ports of this country. We have about 100,000 containers entering Guyana every year. If the customs officers are not allowed to offer facilities such as post-clearance audit facilities and what is called prior to processing, then containers may have to spend months on the wharf. Post-clearance audit simply means that your invoices that you present are accepted, and the values that you declare are accepted as prima facie value, and the Customs Department, the Guyana Revenue Authority, reserves the right to come back if they find discrepancy, if they find that you have been short levied your taxes, if you have paid short taxes, or worse yet, if you have committed fraud or you have made fraudulent declaration. The custom officers, the Guyana Revenue Authority has the right through the custom office, through its custom officers, to reassess and come back and recover from you the short taxes that you paid. They have the power to reassess and charge you what they consider to be the rightful taxes and duties. As I said, that is a power that is not resident in the Guyana Revenue Authority alone, but in taxing authorities across the globe. Any businessman, any importer who is listening to this program is aware of that facility. It's not a recent power, it's a power that the custom authorities has had or have had for many, many decades. And it exists in various taxing legislation, including the Customs Act. And as I said last Saturday, the importer of the goods signs a declaration form in which he or she agrees that the Guyana Revenue Authority can conduct and may conduct, if it wishes, this reassessment and recomputation of taxes should it decide to do so. If it, for whatever reason, learned that short taxes were paid, or worse yet, as I said, fraud was committed or a wrong declaration of value made. Let me explain to the ordinary person out there what a custom officer is entitled to do in law when an invoice is presented for clearance of an item. If you bring in an apple and a custom officer is to assess the value of that apple, they don't have to accept your value that you present. They can interrogate that value that you present on your invoice as the value of that apple for the purpose of the payment of custom duties and taxes. They can and they are required to call the seller from whom you purchase the apple. And they are not bound to accept that seller's price either if they feel that that seller is not selling at market value. They can go and then check that price that the seller has sold at, or that the seller says that he's selling at, with the value or the price of apples in that area where the seller sold the apple, to see that it is market value, so that two persons can't conspire and fabricate a price so as to pay lower custom duties. Now, if the Guyana Revenue Authority is to interrogate every single item in that manner for the purpose of calculation of customs, duties and taxes, a container will take months on the wharf. As I said, Guyana imports approximately 100,000 containers per year. If the judge decision is to be followed, we will have chaos in this country. If that judgment is correct. And that is why it is important that we discuss these matters. It is much larger. The issue here is far greater than the case that was decided. Far greater. This is a matter now of national importance. So, fortunately, this Monday, yesterday, the Honorable Chancellor handed down a decision in a case by the name of Zhang Zhen Yu, a Chinese name, Zhan Zhen Yu, against the Guyana Revenue Authority. And in this case, let me explain to you. In this case, the applicant, that is Zhan Zhen Yu, is a business person who imports various goods for sale. And I'm reading from the judgment. He claims that he purchased non-brand name goods from Chinese companies so that he obtained them at cheap prices. Invoices were presented and accepted, and taxes calculated and paid to the respondent, Guyana Revenue Authority. Thereafter, the containers of goods were released to the applicant. So the goods were calculated, the goods were assessed, the values computed, he paid his taxes, and he was allowed to take the goods. The goods were released to him. He challenges a reassessment. He now goes to court, and he challenges a reassessment and the payment of import duties, which were assessed by the post-clearance audit unit of the Customs Division of the GRA. So, the post-customs, the post-clearance audit unit of the GRA carried out a post-clearance audit, and he's now taking them to court. And this is, he imported these items on diverse dates between 2016 to 2017. The goods were entered and duty paid based on invoices submitted by the applicant to and assessed by GRA. Thereafter, the goods were released to the applicant. 18 months after the last transaction, on the 23rd of November 2017, the applicant received a demand letter dated 22nd of March 2019, 18 months after, signed by Hyman, Mr. Hyman, Deputy Commissioner, Customs and Excise and Trade of GRA, claiming over $15 million as additional duties and taxes on 12 containers of goods imported between November 2016 and October 2017 in relation to the same shipment that were paid for and cleared by customs. So the importer challenged the post-clearance assessment. Are you following me? The man brought in the goods, 10 containers, cleared it, he paid the taxes, and 18 months after, the GRA came back using the post-clearance audit unit, reassessed the value, and charged him $15 million additional taxes. Let me go to I can't read the entire judgment. This is the whole judgment here. Let me read the relevant part quickly. The judge went through the entire facts of the case and went through the lawyer's submissions and rejected them all. She said, and I quote, "I do not consider the complaint that the assessment by the PCAU, that is the Post-Clearance Audit Unit, was unlawful has any merit. I don't consider the complaint that the assessment done by the PCAU was unlawful has any merit. The PCAU, the Post-Clearance Audit Unit, is clearly a department within the GRA. There is no evidence to support the contention that this unit is without statutory power, is illegal and unlawful, and there is most certainly no evidence that it is unconstitutional." You hear me? The Post-Clearance Audit Unit, the judge is pronouncing, is provided for by the law. It is not illegal and it is not unconstitutional. Section 4 of the Customs Act clearly permits such a unit, since anything done or performed in the name of the Commissioner General would be lawful. It cannot be expected that the Commissioner General would inspect, review, and implement the provisions of the Customs Act personally. Here they were saying that the Commissioner General himself must go and do the post-clearance audit. And the judge is saying, no, the Commissioner General has delegates, he has custom officers who can carry out these functions. Therefore, the declaration sought that the PCAU, the Post-Clearance Audit Unit, is illegal and that any assessment by it is unlawful cannot be granted. Then another important part of the judgment, let me get to it quickly because I don't have the time to read everything out. The Chief Justice, the Chancellor, the Madam Chancellor said, to accede to the applicant's contention, and the applicant contention is that there can be no reassessment after the goods have been cleared. That is the applicant's contention. That's what the importer is saying. And the judge is ruling now, to accede to the applicant's contention would mean that an importer could make a false declaration to the GRA, and once their goods have been entered and cleared, the authority would not be able to conduct a further assessment. Even though it is trite law that a taxing act must be construed strictly, the fact is that the provisions identified by the GRA permit the reassessment of taxes after the goods have been entered and cleared. As the provision states, the GRA may request documentation to be produced to substantiate the declarations made. This was done and the applicant did not comply. The statutory provisions then empowered the GRA to act as it did. Do you want me to read that again for you? Let me read it again. To accede to the applicant's contention, and the applicant's contention is that once the GRA clears the goods, that's the end of the matter, they can't come back. Once they accept the taxation, they can't come back. And that's what Justice Gino Prasad has ruled. This is the Chancellor of the Judiciary now. To accede to the applicant's contention would mean that an importer could make false declaration. And that is exactly what the GRA is contending was done in relation to that motor vehicle. False declaration. And here the Chancellor is taking the bull by the horn. It would mean that an importer could make a false declaration to the GRA, and once their goods have been entered and cleared, the authority, meaning the GRA, could not be able to conduct a further assessment. And the judge is saying that even though the Taxing Act must be strictly construed, the fact is that the provisions of the Act, provisions of the Customs Act, identified by GRA, permit the reassessment of taxes after the goods had been entered and cleared. As the provision states, the GRA may request documents to be produced to substantiate the declarations made. That is what GRA did. Asked for the documents, and the GRA had in their possession documents that contradicted the declaration presented in the Mohammed's case. And they produced that to the court. And it doesn't finish here. Let me read. The ASICUDA system is a digital system for the clearance of goods. Section 233 of the Customs Act states that the CG, on the neglect or refusal by an importer to produce documentation requested, may refuse the entry or delivery of the goods that have not been entered or delivered or shipped, or may allow entry, delivery or shipment upon such terms and conditions and upon the deposit of such sums pending the production of proper documents and declarations as he shall see fit to impose or require. All of that is set out in this law, in this ruling. And let me get to the orders that the Chancellor finally granted, because I can't read everything here. Let me read it. Section 17.2 of the Customs Act permits the reassessed value to be levied against duty liable to be paid regarding goods imported. In addition, the GRA could apply its enforcement provisions to effect compliance with the demand notice. And this has nothing to do with filing of criminal charges. This is all in the civil area of the law. Nothing to do with filing of criminal charges, as that other judgment asserted, that if you don't file criminal charges, you can't uplift or receive or obtain outstanding taxes. This judgment is mentioning nothing about filing of criminal charges because that is not required. The court orders as follows. 1. The application for a declaration that the post-clearance audit unit of the Guyana Revenue Authority is without statutory authority, is illegal, is unlawful, and unconstitutional is dismissed. They ask the Chancellor to declare the post-clearance audit unit of the Guyana Revenue Authority as without legal authority, as illegal, as unlawful, and as unconstitutional. And the Chief Justice dismissed it. The application for a declaration that the assessment and demand for duties and taxes by the post-clearance audit unit is without statutory authority, illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional, is dismissed. The application for a declaration that the amounts paid by the applicant on the dates totaling whatever the sum is was unlawfully demanded and received by the Guyana Revenue Authority is dismissed. They want the monies that they paid additionally, that they were reassessed to pay. They want a declaration that monies were paid unlawfully, and the Chief Justice dismissed it. An application for an order directing the Guyana Revenue Authority to repay the sum is refused. And which is 15 million and something dollars. Cost was awarded in the sum of $250,000 to be paid by the GRA. Now I've taken my time to go through this judgment because this program, I want to be educational. And that is what I said from the beginning. I want us to share knowledge. I have just shared with you a judgment granted only yesterday by the Chancellor of the Judiciary of Guyana when she was sitting as Chief Justice acting. And this judgment absolutely contradicts in every material respect the judgment of the Honorable Justice Gino Prasad. I said Saturday, I said Saturday that every importer who benefits who participates in payment of custom duties and whose invoices are accepted as face value, they are required to sign a C-32 form. And in that C-32 form, they are doing many things. The form is 3 pages long, 3 pages in length. This is page 1, page 2, page 3. And in this document that you are signing when you pay your custom duties, and before you get your duties, before you collect your goods, you are required to sign the C-32 form. And the C-32 form says, and let me read what it says. Among many things it says, as I said, it's 3 pages, but let me read 2 important parts of it. By signing and lodging the declaration, the declarant accepts responsibility for the accuracy and completeness of the particulars given on this form and on any continuation sheet lodged with it, and the authenticity of any document produced in support. The declarant also accepts responsibility to supply any additional information or document necessary to establish the customs value of the goods. That is what the declaration form says, the C-72 declaration form. That is what the importer is signing to. And I'm not finished. Let me go to the last page. And this one is even more crucial. I, the undersigned, declare that all particulars given in this document are true and correct. I acknowledge that the Guyana Revenue Authority can review and reassess values in accordance with the 5th schedule within 7 years should further evidence be obtained based on the findings or further investigations. And this document is signed A. Mohammed. Azruddin Mohammed. This document was taken from the case file that was before Justice Gino Prasad. It's a public document. It's filed in the court. It was attached to the affidavit of GRA. Let me read what it says again. Signed by Azruddin Mohammed, dated 2020, 17th April. I have it here. I've asked my personal assistant to make it public. I, the undersigned, declare that all particulars given in this document are true and complete. I acknowledge that the Guyana Revenue Authority can review and reassess values in accordance with the 5th schedule within 7 years, should further evidence be obtained based on the findings or further investigations. The further investigations reveal fraudulent documents were presented, that the car cost 700,000 US and 76,000 US was presented as its value to the Guyana Revenue Authority. That is the case of the Guyana Revenue Authority. Now I know that 5,000 fake profiles will now be unleashed on me. And I'll be cussed out and I'll be abused in the vilest manner. But that will not change these facts. And they will attack me more. But the truth is all I am dealing with. And this is my job as Attorney General. Because when you attack the taxation authority of the state, you are striking at the lifeblood of the state. The state will grind to a financial halt because it runs itself, it sustains itself, it draws its life from taxes. The judiciary is paid and financed from taxes. So I have asked my personal assistant to share this judgment and this form with the press so that the public will have it out there. This form is no longer private documents because, as I said, it formed part of the court proceedings. Any one of you listening to me can go tomorrow and apply for the entire file and pay a fee, and you will get it. So, those who don't wish to listen to me, stay off my page. That is all I am saying. I am doing what my duty is. I am doing my job. And I have no apologies for doing what I am doing. Another case that I want to speak about is also another judgment issued by the Honorable Roxanne George yesterday. And it involves a case that was filed by Julian Cambridge in his capacity as second vice president of the Guyana Teachers Union, and Kempton Alexander in his capacity as General Secretary of the Guyana Public Service Union. They sued the Attorney General of Guyana, yours truly, because they claim that the Constitutional Reform Commission Act is unconstitutional. I don't even understand what was their claim. They were represented by Roysdale Ford, Senior Counsel, and Sasha King. Roysdale Ford has had a long streak of losses, and he continues to persevere. The gravamen of this case is that these two unions claim that they were not consulted when appointments were made to the Constitutional Reform Commission, and that there is a nominee on that commission that came from the labor organizations, and they were not consulted. And they claim that that appointment, that nominee, appointed by the president, was unlawful and unconstitutional. We led evidence to show that we consulted with FITU, the Federation of Independent Trade Union, which is the largest umbrella body of trade unions in the country. We consulted the largest Christian organizations in the country to get a Christian nominee. We consulted the largest Hindu organizations in the country to get a Hindu nominee. We consulted the largest Muslim organizations to get a Muslim nominee. But we didn't consult every single organization representing Hinduism or every single organization representing Christianity or every single organization representing Islam. In the same way, we didn't consult every single union in the country. And nothing is wrong with that. The law never, the Constitutional Reform Commission Act, never mandated the President or the Attorney General to consult with every single organization representing a particular cause in Guyana. Or else the consultation would never done. The consultation would have never been completed. We would have still been consulting now. If I had to consult with every tin and cup organization in the country, when would I have finished consulting to appoint a commission? These are the frivolities that are being filed in the court system. The case was dismissed and $500,000 in costs are to be paid to the Attorney General. Of course, this judgment will also be released publicly so that the press can cover it and they can write stories and can give you greater details. So I want to move on to pay some attention to a fella who seems to be begging for attention. Now, I have never met or spoken with Terence Campbell. I saw him one time in court, and then I think I saw him a second time when we were sworn in as parliamentarians. That's the extent of my knowledge of this man. But I thought that this man is educated. I think he has a DR in front of his name. So I assume that he is the recipient of some degree of scholarship. He, he represents a very important organization in this country, in a very high forum of our country. He represents the leader of the PNC, an important political organization in the National Assembly of our country. He represents an important constituent in this country, an important demographic in this country. I don't know how he got there, because he has no history in politics. However he got there, he got there. And one would have expected that, having been elevated to such a high position, that this gentleman would conduct himself with some degree of decorum, political maturity, and with intellect. But persons have been forwarding to me posts that he's making on Facebook about me, insulting or attempting to insult and attempting to denigrate me. Now, I have a thick skin, you know that. Azruddin has unleashed 25,000 fake profiles on me alone. So I am in this thing for the long haul, and I've been here for the long haul. So Terence Campbell can't affect me in any way. But I'm worried about what he's displaying because of what he represents and whom he represents. I care very little for Mr. Campbell. This man represents the party of Hobbes Burnham. You know, he has been, I have cited to him, I have said on this program that the bill that he's attempting to have debated in the parliament is inadmissible and ought to be rejected and should not be put on the order paper, because he has violated one of the most sacred, sacrosanct, and long-standing rule in parliaments in the world, including the Guyana parliament, and that is the sub judice rule. Now, since independence, almost every speaker of the National Assembly has asserted that principle without failure, every single one of them, irrespective of which government is in office. The thing is captured in our standing orders at Standing Order 41. Reference shall not be made to any matter, and this is contents of speeches. In your speech, you can't refer to any matter which is sub judice in such a way as might, in the opinion of the chair, prejudice the interests of the parties thereto. That's how the rule is expressed. But the rule is of greater gravity than that. Here, he has a pending case that addresses the identical issues, or he wants the court to address the very issues which are the subject of a bill he's bringing to the National Assembly. A clear violation of the sub judice rule. Clear violation. Rather than accept that, the fellow goes on a tirade. And you know, had he not said anything, a lot of people would, like me, believed that he is lettered, but he lets the cat out of the bag by what he writes. The man started to attack me and goes on to quote, to tell us that he has bought an Erskine May's Parliamentary Practice, 25th edition. And you know, when I looked, and he quotes it, when I went to investigate what this fellow is quoting, first of all, before I get to his quote, you only refer to Erskine May's Parliamentary Practice because there's an English text. It's Parliamentary Practice and Procedure of the British Parliament, which is the House of Commons. That's what the British Parliament is called, the House of Commons. That is the equivalent to our National Assembly. And our standing orders provide at 113, Standing Order 113 says, in any matter not herein provided, so where our standing order is silent, resort shall be had to the usage and practice of the Commons Assembly of Parliament of Great Britain, meaning the House of Commons, and Northern Ireland, which shall be followed as far as the same may be applicable to our Assembly, but not inconsistent with these standing orders or with the practice of our Assembly. So we must follow it when our standing order is silent. And secondly, it must not be inconsistent with our standing order or practice. We have a standing order that speaks to the sub judice rule, and our practice has been uninterruptedly that every speaker has upheld the sub judice rule. Rather than accept that or find out from Ganesh Mahipal or any person who spends some time in the Parliament and be guided accordingly, the fellow digs in. And he tells us that he bought this book. Somebody print the thing here for me. He said he paid $877 US for the book. And you know what? He's reading and he finds in the book support for what he's saying. So when it was sent to me by somebody, I was surprised. I said, the authors of Erskine May's have gone mad. And then when I look carefully, the man is reading the wrong section of the book. How do you help these people? The man is reading the section of the book that speaks to the proceedings in the House of Lords. So he's referring to a chapter 25 in the book, but chapter 25, and it's titled Sub Judice, but it is, chapter 25 deals with proceedings in the House of Lords. So that chapter says that the rule governing sub judice do not apply to bills, measures, or delegated legislation, or to proceedings on them. The man holds on to this for dear life and calling me all kind of names. And it is the House of Lords practice and rules have no application to us. It is the House of Commons rules and practice that apply if our standing order is silent. And our standing order is not silent. This is what the real part of the book, the appropriate part of the book reads. Matters awaiting the adjudication of a court of law should not be brought forward in a debate. That is what the thing says. Matters awaiting adjudication of a court of law should not be brought forward in a debate. So while a gentleman has bought a book and has paid 877 US for it and boastfully exhibits the book and the price that he pays for it, he has demonstrated to us, unfortunately, that he's unable to even read, understand, and use that which he has spent so much money to acquire. And all of this could have been avoided with a little humility and a little caution that, we should learn a little. I didn't acquire what I have been in the parliament now for 2 decades. This fellow has been in the parliament for 1 hour. And he wants to challenge my knowledge of the law and parliamentary practice. I am not normally, I don't want to disrespect anyone. I respect people's spheres of influence, their expertise. I respect their qualifications. But why are you launching an attack and being so disrespectful when you are so inept? My operator is telling me, is whispering to me, that I should not comment on fried chicken. Is that what you want me to say? Yes, sir. I will comment on law, because that's where I believe I know something. I don't know how to fry chicken. So I thought that is important that I deal with this misinformation and onslaught that is being launched on the social media. And I saw another member of this opposition, David Hines, as usual, spewing racial rhetoric. These guys do not understand, and perhaps they will never understand, that it is because of the racial rhetoric that they moved from 31 seats to 12 seats. It is because of their uttering things that are outrageous, like, for example, they won the 2020 elections, along with racial rhetoric, is why, or are why, they moved from 31 seats to 12 seats. Let them continue this merry way, and 2030, they will be without a seat. Because the Guyanese people are intelligent now and have no time, have no patience, have no tolerance for racism and stupidity. And you have a dangerous combination of the two on the opposition benches. My operator is signaling to me that we have now passed program time. I'm sorry I didn't get to answer any questions. I'm still looking at, I see, operator, a lot of people, I see, commenting on this fried chicken. You see, you made me, I don't like, I say that not to disrespect anyone, but then, I was just being, I have a fairly reasonable sense of humor that I invoke ever so often, not intended to be disrespectful. Thank you very much. I will join you next week as we resume our discussions on issues in the news. Please stay safe, enjoy the rest of your evening, and stay healthy so that we can meet again and rock and roll next Tuesday on issues in the news. Thank you very much. May God bless you.